Well, hey, you, and welcome back to another episode of the Miss Michaela Mae Show. I'm your host, Miss Michaela Mae, and I am so excited to bring to you the first masterclass for the Miss Michaela Mae Show, which is From Pen to Publish, a step-by-step guide on how to write and self-publish your first book. So, without further ado, let's get into it. If you are on the podcast and you are like me and you like a visual aid, this masterclass is also available on YouTube, and I've created a slide deck for it so you can follow along and take notes. So if you're on the podcast and you want a visual aid, there is a YouTube link in the description so you can catch the visual aid version of From Pen to Published as well. And if you are on YouTube, hello. It is so nice to see you and meet you. And today in this masterclass, the goal is to give you a simple step-by-step process to start helping you write your book, feel confident in your book, and write your book your way. And then, of course, walk you through the self-publishing process, how to log into Amazon KDP, the steps on walking through that. So that's the goal of this class, is to literally take us from pen to published, from the start to when the book is on the shelf, or what do we call that now? The screen, because it's like the Amazon screen. We'll figure that out later. So the topics we're going to cover is introduction, the masterclass that set me free, do versus delegate, the writing process, the editing process, the formatting process, cover design, and KDP. Introduction. First, I want to introduce you. Hi, especially if you're new to the show. I'm Miss Michaela Mae. This is my dog Willie, and we are the authors of The Barn off of Colfax Lane. And I say we because my dogs are everywhere with me, and the book writing process is just so intimate. It's just meant so much to me that my dogs are here with me. So this is our book, The Barn off of Colfax Lane, and it's a memoir of sexual assault and the mixed feelings that come with it. So I wanted to tell you a little bit more about my story and why I started writing. And really, it was a side effect of the events that take place in the barn off of Colfax Lane. Something that I describe is when I get overwhelmed with emotions and I don't know what to do with them, I get what I call itchy. It's like, when you're so swollen that your legs almost itch. And that's how I feel with emotions. It's as if I'm so full of emotions that it's itchy. And the thing when I was young and after that experience, the thing that got that itchiness to get out of the body was writing. And so I started writing, and the way that I explain it is my hands could translate the words my mouth couldn't describe. And so here we are. That was when I was 13. I'm 30 now. So here we are 17 years later and still writing. What I learned from writing this book is there's something very profound and very powerful about seeing your story objectively. And it was not what I was expecting. I've done a ton of therapy and other somatic healing practices, and nothing is like writing a book, because when we're going through something, it's really just this thing between me, myself, and I. We have nothing to compare it to because it was quote unquote our normal. And then the moment it's on paper, the way that I describe it for myself is all of a sudden it wasn't me going through that. It was a 12-year-old girl going through that with a 79-year-old man. And it allowed me to gain a compassion for myself that I hadn't had before. So that was the big thing that I learned through writing this book, is there's just something healing about the writing process that no other healing modalities have done for me. And I've done a lot of experimentation and spent a lot of time and effort in the healing and trauma space because of the events at the barn off of Colfax Lane. And so that was the main thing that I learned, is it just reminded me of the power of writing, honestly. And then why I'm sharing this with you, the masterclass and everything, is because I believe we all have a story. I believe our story is meant to be told. And I want to help you bring it to life. So, without further ado, let's get started on bringing your book to life in pen to published. So, the masterclass that set me free, I wanted to bring this up because it was such a big permission slip for me, and I wanted to give you this permission slip too. If the masterclass is still out there, I highly recommend that you go watch it, because I don't want to steal Matt's thunder, if you will. I got my thunder, Matt's got his thunder, and we're both gonna rock the world in our own ways. And I want to allow him to rock the world in the way he's meant to rock the world. So, highly recommend going and watching Matt Rudd in the Punchy Books Masterclass. But what I took away from it is toss out the old rules and write my book my way. And so the next thing we're going to get into is do versus delegate. So make a list, a T chart. Again, if you're watching the visual, I've got a sample of a T chart here of what I did versus what I delegated. I didn't delegate as much with this first book. So my do list was writing, my delegate list was editing. For my also on my do list, cover design, formatting, KDP. This was what it ultimately looked like for me. I wanted to format because I really like getting behind the scenes. And honestly, my big goal with getting behind the scenes is I want to know how to do it so later on down the road when I have a team or if I'm working with a publishing, if I decide to work with a publishing house later on down the line, um, I know when someone's BSing me or not. So I really like to be behind the scenes. I like to know how it works. So I wanted to do that. Don't love the editing process. Even if I did love the editing process, I still would have hired an editor. I actually did hire a cover designer, did not go well. And so her and I just parted ways. And I thought, you know what? I actually love graphic design. I want to do this myself. And then it's a long story. But the barn that it took place at, my dad actually owns the property. I I'm going to get into that. I think I actually do get into it a little bit in the barn off of Colfax Lane, why my dad owns the property. But so we still own my dad still owns the property. So I was able to go to the property, take a picture of me walking back into that same barn, which I don't talk about enough. I probably should talk about that enough. Um, back into the crime scene, if you will. And it was kind of interesting walking back into it. It would have been 15 years later because I think I took that picture 2 years ago. My dog got to go with me, so that was really cool for me. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go do the cover design. I want to format because I want to know how it works, and then I'm gonna do KDP because again, I want to know how it works. But I am hiring an editor as fast as possible. So that was my do and delegate list. Find your budget. This is just a sample of my budget. I've spent a little bit more since then. Editing 750, cover design, I originally spent 500. Again, it didn't work out. We went separate ways. I do on the second memoir that I'm working on, I am going to hire that cover out because I have a very specific look that goes beyond my graphic design skills is what I'm doing now because back when even in 2023, like AI wasn't like it is now. AI is actually it's crazy thinking about I was going through this because I made these slides to do about a year ago. And I was going back through these slides before I pressed record today. And I was thinking about, I was making it in 2024, thinking about how I published the book and everything and putting the step-by-step process for you. And it's honestly crazy with AI, how much things have changed even just in the last year, especially for me, because I wasn't using AI at all in 2023. I think I started in 2024 a little bit. So editing, I had about 750 into it. I will pay my editor more this round because the book's a lot bigger. Cover design, again, spent 500, didn't go the way that I wanted it to go. So I'm going to be I'll spend probably 500 again for this next time. What I ended up doing it myself. And I spent 20 to $40 on purchasing some assets. So I own the entire copyright to them. And then my time, formatting. I bought a formatting software. It was $147 for lifetime access. I don't know. I should have checked it before I didn't. I apologize. Atticus was $147 for lifetime access. So it was the $147 plus my time, writing, my time, KDP. It was my time. Okay. So step one, erase the old rules and write your own. Old rule example is nonfiction books must be at least 60,000 words. This is one of the things that Matt helped me understand when I watched his masterclass a few years ago is they used to want books a certain width because on the bookshelf, they needed to stand out even if they weren't front facing. Now, the majority of books are sold on Amazon and we see the covers front facing all the time. So the width actually doesn't matter. And the best-selling books on Amazon are actually between 20 and 22,000 words. So that was really helpful for me. Again, with my intentions of teaching you and with myself was I want to write the book the way that it's meant to be written. And my first book, The Barn Off of Colfax Lane, was not meant to be written at 60,000 words. So the old rule, again, 60,000 words because we need that thick spine. My rule that I made for myself was I'm going to write my story until it's done. I'm going to tell my story in the way that it needs to be told. And whether that's 20,000 words, 60,000 words, 160,000 words, etc. Action step, write down 3 to 5 rules that you feel you have to abide by in order to write and publish your book. Once you get those 3 to 5 rules, the first thing I would actually do is I would actually contest them, whether take them to court, if you will. And so why is this not true? And maybe Matt's masterclass can do that for you because he's deeper into the publishing world than I am. And just break down like, oh, it actually doesn't, I don't have to do this. I don't have to do this. Oh, I don't have to do that either. That's not true. That's not true. BS, BS, BS. And then once you've debunked them, then create 3 to 5 rules for yourself and your book writing process and abide by your rules and not some old rules that were created for an outdated system that was selling mostly books in the bookshelves and not on Amazon. So again, back with my fancy little tea chart. Old rule, a book is done at 60,000 words. These are just examples. You don't have to use the rules that I have written here, but a book is done when it is done. Old rule, I must have a degree to write a book. My rule, I must know how to write a book. Old rule, I'm not qualified to be an author. Your rule, they said J.K. Rowling was not qualified enough to be an author. She wasn't a good enough writer. We see how that worked out for the person that told her no. Moving on. Okay. Step number 2, know your weak points and plan ahead. One of my favorite quotes is from an author and speaker and teacher named Alison Armstrong. She's a relationship coach. Her book's The Queen's Code, Keys to the Kingdom. I believe she's coming out with a book called The King's Code. Changed my life. My saying is the healed wounds I didn't know I have. I had just have deep, deep respect for this woman. And one of her quotes is, I don't argue with the way things are. I figure out how it is and I learn to work with it. I apply this rule to myself. I don't argue with myself about how I am. I learn how I am and I learn to work with it and what works best for me in the creative process. Because my priority is to keep myself creative, to keep myself in flow. And if that means I got to do a handstand against the wall and do a little dance, make a little love, get down, that's what I got to do. So I figure out what I need and I learn to work with it. So my weak points. I knew going in my weak points would be editing. And so I made a plan, or what I'll call later a bumper lane, to put in place. I hired and paid an editor right away. Like I paid her right away. I'm like, let me get some skin in the game. Let me get some stakes in the game. Second weak point, self-doubt, especially working through my first book. I had a ton of self-doubt. I went to therapy and spiritual guidance, which spiritual guidance is more of a somatic therapy. Um, and then consistency. I knew consistency would be a weak point for me on my first book. I'm actually, like I said, I made these slides about a year ago, if not over a year ago. And it was actually really cool to go back through these and see how much I've just grown in the last year, because consistency is something I've been working on, especially in the last few months, and have really done better on that. So this is a sign to go celebrate yourself, because a coach that I had worked with probably 5 years ago had said, if you don't stop and turn around, you'll never see how far you've come. And so just a reminder for you and me both, if you have not done that lately, stop and see how far you've come. Because again, viewing these slides for me today, I'm like, I've done a lot of stuff in the last few months. So, and the way that I combated this, the bumper lane that I put in, was I started talking about the book to strangers, specifically not just strangers, some strangers, but people I would see every day, people that I had a corporate job at the time. So it's people that I worked with, people that I would see at the coffee shop, the barista, because I wanted them to ask me about the book, because I wanted the pressure of needing to get it done because people were talking to me about it, because I knew that would help me. Again, I know how I am, so I've learned to work with it. So action step, list at least 3 of your weak points or areas that you believe that you're going to get stuck. And then create a bumper lane or a plan for each of those weak points, so that when it happens, there's already a plan in place and you don't get lost for 5, 6 months, 10 years. Okay, step number 3. There's a saying that I was thinking of. If you don't be careful, tomorrow turns into never real quick. And that's the importance of those bumper lanes, is we don't want tomorrow turning into never. So put the bumper lanes in place. We all get off course. We all go in the gutter. As long as we have a plan to get us out of the gutter, it's going to be a-okay. So step 3, the writing process. Draft 1. So this is a quote that I heard from Tucker Max that I want to share with you today, just because I love it and I think it's really helpful advice, is write for you and edit for your reader. The most important rule, especially in this first draft, is to write completely unfiltered, just absolutely no filter. And some people call their first draft the shitty first draft or the SFD. Some people call it the vomit draft. I called mine the rage pages. And if you're not on the podcast, or if you're not on the YouTube video and you're on the podcast, there we go. I'm sorry, because I'm about to show you live footage of me writing my first book. If you are on the podcast, it's the guy from it's not actual live footage of me. It's a picture of the anger from inside out blowing a fuse because that was me writing the book. But what this did for me is it allowed me to get through the gunk to find the gold. The more I got the crap out of the way, the more the clarity came through. And for me, the crap was all the stored rage that, and that's what's so interesting. Because once I got done with the rage pages, it was very obvious how much rage I had in my body. It was not obvious when I started that. And one of these days, I'm going to go back and find the rage pages and I'm going to post them to my blog or something because I just think it'd be really cool to show the transformation from the rage pages to the barn off of Colfax Lane because it's a big difference. So, action step. Set a word count goal that feels simple and exciting for you. I actually, before I pressed record, I wanted to read this to you. I was listening to Crime Country on satellite radio. And I believe his name's Bobby Gentry. He's a country music songwriter, but he was giving advice to aspiring songwriters. But I thought it was really helpful for just aspiring creatives, whether you're a songwriter, a book writer, or a poetry or painter or whatever. Is write one line every day, even if it's a bad line, because every bad line leads to a good line. And this was something, I learned quite some time ago from Tim Ferriss is start so small you can't fail. And the interesting thing is you'll want to do more. So tell yourself, just go walk for 1 minute. And then once it's like, well, I'm already out here. I might as well walk for 2 minutes. Oh, I'm already out here. I might as well walk for 3 minutes. Writing's the same way. Just write one line. Like set yourself such a small goal. It's laughable. And you'll find once you keep going, it's like, oh, like even for me, I'm working on a fiction book as well. Cause fun fact, writing about your trauma all the time is not very fun. It's therapeutic. It's great. It's just not very fun. And so I needed something, I needed more fun in my life. And I've had a fiction book on my mind for a long time. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to start on the fiction book because that sounds like a lot of fun for me right now. And so I started the fiction book and it was interesting because I haven't worked on the fiction book in probably about 5 years. I've just been taking notes on it in my phone when I get ideas out in the wild. And I was feeling the first 2 days I was working on it, I was feeling so clunky of like, I had so many ideas and now that I'm starting to get in the flow, I'm like, oh, I forgot I had this idea. I had this idea. This character was going to do this and da, 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 da. And I feel like Tom Cruise and I almost said Mission Impossible Minority Report. When he's at that screen, just da 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 da. And it's like I set the goal, for me, so small for myself. First, it was like get my writing space up. I'm very visual. Get the big sticky notes on the wall, and then have Chat GPT, start asking me discovery questions about the book. And then all of a sudden, I'm answering these discovery questions. I'm like, holy crap, this book is. I am so excited for this fiction book. Just so excited. And again, it's exciting, so I want to do it. But when we put pressure on ourselves, again, talking about what makes us the most creative, does pressure make you creative or does excitement make you more creative? So how do you make this exciting and fun and really like fun? I was beating myself up probably a few months ago just for feeling like I wasn't getting enough done and feeling lazy. And the question that popped in was like, well, Michaela, how do you make this more interesting? It was really around my podcast and this YouTube channel. And that was the question is like, how do I make this more interesting and more exciting? And all of a sudden, when I have this interest and this excitement, all of a sudden I'm pulled to do something. I don't have to force myself to do it. So a similar idea here is like, how do you make this exciting so that you want to do it? And you don't have to force yourself to do it. And then, like we said, with the bumper lanes, then have a plan in place on the days that it doesn't feel exciting and it doesn't feel interesting. You've got a bumper lane in place to pop you back into the lane and out of the gutter. Okay. Step 4, the editing process. So here are the options for editing. Hiring an editor out in the wild, finding someone in a Facebook group, looking on Google. This is going to be more of a higher end experience. Upwork or Fiverr, this is going to be more of a budget friendly experience. Grammarly, this is an AI editing experience. And I wanted to separate Grammarly just from overall AI because Grammarly is specifically for writing and stuff. I would, I'll get into this in a second. First, know yourself. Second, know what you need. My 2 cents is if a human is going to be reading your book, then a human should be either editing or beta reading your book. I believe they should be doing both. Again, this is why you need to know yourself and meet yourself where you're at. Because if you're just at a point where you're like, you know what, Michaela, I just need to start writing. I don't want to deal with an editor. I'm not at the point where I want to share this. I do want some edits and some feedback. So AI is where I feel most comfortable. Perfect. I think that's an amazing start. So again, start with where you need to start. If you are looking to get your book published, this is my 2 cents on AI versus um, humans. Action step, create a list of 1 to 3 things that you need from an editor, whether it's human or AI. So for me, I can tend to be really hard on myself. My editor, shout out and God bless Christina, is one of the most compassionate and kind and soft human beings. So like I'm over here beating myself up and she's over here like you're good. You're more than good. You're more than okay. So she balances me there. I'm actually not really a reader. I don't love reading. I love reading and I don't love reading. But I'm someone who like reads a couple books a year. I'm not someone who reads. I've been working on one book for longer. I'm not going to tell you how long I've been working on that book, but I was reading it last night though. Um I don't read a book every week. I don't, especially when I'm writing, I don't love doing a ton of writing and doing a ton of reading, especially if I'm editing. I'm doing enough reading in my editing. I don't, I just, like, I don't need to read. Christina's a reader. So, because there's a lot of arguments in the writing community. You need to be a reader if you want to be a writer, blah, 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 whatever. No, I need to write to be a writer. Don't give me this crap. Christina, on the other hand, she is a reader. So she does have more experience. She knows what people want. So she can counteract me there. I don't need to be a reader because I have an editor that's a reader. I'm trying to think if there's one other thing I really felt like I needed in an editor. Christina, this is something I didn't know I needed, but now in hindsight, and this kind of ties into her compassion, but she does just have a very sweet big sister vibe of she's really good at like, okay, this is what needs to be done, but in a very loving way. And she honors, I have a very specific vision for my story. And so I wanted an editor who can help me bring my vision to life, not their vision to life, my vision to life, with also telling me where my pitfalls are. And Christina just hits those check marks just absolutely perfectly. So make a list of what you need. And then as you know your needs, start contemplating how you want the editing process to go. All right. So step 5, revisions. So how I decided how many revisions I wanted to complete, my intuition, the book, like how I felt the book needed again to be written, and then my editor. And the one thing that we all must be mindful of is perfection paralysis, because at some point our book will be done and editing will become another form of procrastination. So I knew this was going to be a trap for me of it could be better, it could be better, it could be better, it could be better. And it's like at some point we're only doing these many revisions. And on this last revision, you got to go with it, girl. This was the story. This was the conversation I was having with me and myself and I. So ask yourself, how many edits are you willing to complete? Ask yourself, how will you know when good enough is good enough? Because again, I know me, I know how nitpicky I can get. I know I would have just sat in the weeds and edited and edited and edited, and I never would have got my book out. And I had to make peace with the first book is going to be what the first book is, and my books are just going to keep getting better and better because I'm getting better and better as a writer. Um, this is a saying that my aunt's from England, so please imagine me saying this in a British accent that I don't have. You're not everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. I wish my Aunt Jane was here because her saying it in her British accent just makes the cup of tea a little bit sweeter. And that's the one thing that, when we get in that perfection paralysis in editing, it's because we're trying to be everyone's cup of tea. We're trying to make this book sound good to her, him, and everyone else involved, because in it, the dog, Sasquatch, whoever else you can think of. I'm trying to think of any other mythical creatures. Hobbits. Hobbitses. Um, and just know like your book is to be written the way that you were meant to write it. It does need to make sense. It does need to hit these things, but ultimately, that's one thing that being online has proven to us is there is an audience for everyone. Like I'm not going to get into it, but there was this most random video that went viral and someone said, I found my people. And it was about, fine, I'll tell you this part because I can't really finish it without telling you. It was about how people wipe, specifically women. Like, are you a front to back? Are you back to front? Are you like a split? Do you split it? And everyone's like, I found my people. There is literally an audience for everyone. So focus on you. Again, what Tucker Max said, write for you, edit for your reader. And most likely your reader is going to be a younger version of you. So again, even with that in mind, your ideal reader being a younger version of you, like what would she have wanted? And really continue to write this book for you. Know that you're not meant to be everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. Six, the formatting process. So again, I kind of mentioned it earlier when I was telling you what my cost breakdown analysis was. I used Atticus.io. Um, the biggest mistake I made with Atticus, I loved Atticus. I'm using it. I'll be using it for my next few books unless I decide to go traditional publishing on my fiction book. As of right now, I'm planning on going traditional publishing. Haven't decided if as of right now, my second memoir will be self-published and not traditionally published. But so as of right now, my plan with my second memoir, I will be using Atticus again. I will not be editing in Atticus again because Atticus is designed to be like a writing, editing, and formatting software. I'm going to keep everything in my documents and I'm not going to I don't know if there's actually a proper term in the book world for this. When I was in film school and down in LA, we call it screen lock. You know, when a screenplay is at screen lock, you don't touch it again. It's off to the producers. It's getting broke down of what things need. You're not allowed to touch it after that. Like, will there be some changes on set? Of course. But with that being said, similar to screen lock, the book goes into book lock, then we go into Atticus because there was just some, and I don't, it could have been, it might not be Atticus. It could have been my computer because the computer that I edited on a year and a half ago was pretty old, but I would be editing a word and it would glitch. And as I was typing the word, it would flip to a word like 7 lines up. And then, so like if you have the, and then half the word of patience, it went to like the Asian E, like it was just, yeah. And some of those ended up because I didn't catch that the software was doing that, ended up going into the book and I had to fix it. And it wasn't a big deal, but it was enough that it made me make this decision of I'm not editing within Atticus. Um, so a lot of book one, kind of what I mentioned earlier, is going to be trial and error, making peace with it's got to go out and figuring out what suits flow, flow. Did I say that right? I don't know. Flow suits you best. Kind of what we've been talking about, what I'll be doing differently with book two. I'll be completing edit one, sending it to my editor, formatting a section. So I'll take like one chapter of the book and I'll create because you can use a template within Atticus or you can create your own template. I like to create my own template because with my background in design and film, I have very certain and specific aesthetics I like. I do know what my aesthetic's going to be that I want to make come to life. So I'll take a section, design a template so that when I upload the whole book into it, my template's already done. I'll save the format and then upload the book once it's completed. So action step, do you want to format or do you want to delegate the formatting? Write a small action plan for the formatting process, whether that's finding someone to do it for you or you doing it yourself. Again, this is something you can find on Fiverr or Upwork. Step 7, cover design. So Adobe Illustrator versus Canva, again, this is with the assumption that you're not delegating the cover design, that you are doing the cover design yourself. Note, the design cannot be fully completed until you have a page and word count. So again, when the manuscript is in what I'm calling screen lock, you can call it book lock, then you put it into Amazon KDP and it'll give you can get a template from Amazon KDP giving you dimensions, what you need for the bleed, but it's also going to give you spine width because obviously depending on the word count, spine width is going to change. So the dimensions for the lay flat, because that will be a single format, is going to be different. So you can start designing it and kind of get a visual aid of like, okay, this is what I want. Something that I've started doing because again, I'm a very visual person and I'll design a sample cover in AI, like in ChatGPT, and I'll set it as my background on my phone because again, I'm very visual and that just helps me. Like every time I pick up my phone, I'm looking at the potential cover of the book. I'm thinking about the book. Again, it's a creative flow hack for me. Um, so I will do that just to get like the cover, but as far as the lay flat goes, I do not touch that until the book is in screen lock because I don't want my dimensions and my layout to be all funky and then it has to change because I didn't get the spine width right and it's probably a nitpicky thing, but I like to save time. This is just a little bit of a note to save you some time. So action step, do you want to, oh, I forgot to switch the word. Do you want to do the cover design or do you want to delegate it? Because again, what I just told you, if you're delegating it, you don't really have to worry about it. So on that note, though, you can get started, but you won't be finished until, again, the book is in book lock. So, step 8, KDP. Again, if you're on the podcast, you won't be able to see this. If you jump over to YouTube, though, I have some screen grabs of my back end um, KDP just to kind of show you around. So, you'll create an account at kdp.amazon.com. If you already have an Amazon account, like a Prime account, you can just use that email for it. You'll click this yellow button, create a new title or series. As you can see, so I'll jump to the next page, but you want to create the book and then you'll go under the book where it says create a Kindle ebook, create a hardcover. So I always start with creating a paperback. And then once you do that, it's a lot easier just to create a hardcover or a Kindle underneath that. And this ensures that when someone brings up your book, there, when you go to buy a book on Amazon, you can select Kindle, all these things. So that just ensures that it's all in one place and you don't essentially have three different ads. And it's just going to help with book sales and the algorithm. So paperback, I'd click paperback, and then you'll go through filling out all the details of your book, your name, etc. The one thing I would spend some time on, potentially get some help on, even if it's through AI, do some research for other books in your genre, books that you would consider colleagues of yours, if you will, and spend time on finding the right categories, spend time on finding the right keywords. Because again, it's going to be a lot of you pushing traffic to your book, but also we do want to get Amazon to rank our book. And it comes down to like keywords and categories. So do some research on this. It's how I thought about it is if someone's buying. So for me, I read the book JC Dugard, A Stolen Life. She was the girl that was kidnapped and they found her several years later. I would want my book to show up under her book. So I went to her book and looked, where does she have this categorized? There was another Jessica Fletcher, I want to say, had a book called Unspeakable. It was newer than JC's book. So I went to Jessica, saw what it was categorized in, saw the keywords she used. Because again, I want my book to rank in the same categories that their books would rank. Okay, so final touches. Get a copyright. Again, you want the book in book lock before you go to copyright because it needs to be word for word how it's published, or there can be some loopholes of people using your content, etc. So get a copyright at copyright.gov. I believe it was about $65 for a copyright. This needs to be later in the game, like I just said, because you want your everything manuscript to be completely done. Decide between an ISBN or a SIN. This is for the barcode. If you're just publishing through Amazon, I'd honestly, I would probably just go with ASIN. If you're gonna go through like Ingram Spark, Barnes and Noble, other things, you're gonna need an ISBN, and you're gonna need an ISBN for every single one of them. This is where the cost can start to add up. If you're gonna do that, go to myidentifiers.com and then buy a package of those of ISBNs. Okay. Action step. Do you need help with the copyright? Do you need an ISBN or ASIN? ASIN? I keep waiting for myself to say those backwards. Decide what you need. Go from there. Step number 9, do a trial book. I highly recommend this. This was my trial book. I actually ended up publishing it after the Barn off Colfax Lane because I wasn't sure if I was going to publish it. And then one night I was like, F it, I'm publishing this thing. I went and did 2 rounds of MDMA therapy and I wrote what people would call trip reports afterwards. It ended up being like a 25,000 word document. This is actually what really got me writing again, to be honest with you, was my MDMA trips. I went and yeah, wrote about 25,000 words. I thought, you know what, I'm gonna put this in a book. And it's just a great way to get your feet wet, get a couple reps in before like getting your book baby, if you will, for lack of a better term. Both of these books are important to me. These next 2 books I'm writing are important to her. It's kind of rude to say, but because I love my first 2 books for how they are, but again, it's not quite the labor of love of these next 2 books that I'm writing. So for me, it was really nice to get these reps in, honor those other books for what they are, this book for what it is, the Barn off Colfax Lane for what it is. It just helps. So that's something I recommend. If you write a short essay between 10, 15, 20,000 words, just publish it. Even if it's a small poetry book, just publish it, get your feet wet, get some experience in, and hey, you never know. You might make some extra cash too. Okay. So my parting thoughts today is done is better than perfect. And even then, this is a quote that I heard from a Brennan Burchard seminar that I wanted to share with you because as someone who used to identify as a perfectionist, this quote just helped me really flip the whole perfectionist thing on its head and it was super helpful. So, even with done being better than perfect, the original definition of perfect meant to perfect, as in to make better. And the only way to make something better is if we have something to make better. So the only way to make your work perfect is to make your work better. And the only way to make something better is to have something done, to make done. So if you have nothing done, then you have nothing to perfect. So that was just something, the way that Brendan worded it was just really helpful for me of the original definition being perfect, meaning to make better, meaning we have to have something done in order to perfect it. And we cannot make anything perfect, meaning we can't make anything better if we don't have something done. And that was just really helpful for me to, again, like, you can't be a perfectionist if you don't have something done. That's what I would tell myself. You can't be a perfectionist if you don't have something done. So peanut gallery, shush, we got to get this done. Then we can get into perfectionist mode. And this is the last thing that I believe I'm leaving you with today. I think we're almost at the end of our slide deck here is the work you do now will reach someone in the way they need it now. So the way that I wrote the barn off of Colfax Lane, the way that I wrote A Trip with the Birds, they're going to reach the audience that they need to reach in the way those audience need to hear those stories now. When I finish my second memoir, I'm not revealing the title yet. It is going to reach the people that it needs to reach, how it's written for how I'm able to write it now. When I finish my fiction book, it's going to reach that audience in the way that they need to be reached now. And so that just helped me bring a lot of peace of kind of knowing that of it is perfect because it's going to reach people in the way that they need it now. The barn off of Colfax Lane, some people are going to love that more than they're going to love my second memoir. And that's okay. That's how it's meant to be done. You know, I'm a self-proclaimed music nerd. Most of my songs people haven't heard. Like I love Toby Keith is my favorite country music singer. My favorite Toby Keith songs, most people have not heard of because I don't love his hits. I love his little hidden gems on his albums where I feel like he just shows more of his depth. And that's how I feel about the books is again, back to, for from my Aunt Jane, we're not everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. The tea that you're meant to serve will reach the people in the way that they need their tea. My brain is done. So I'm going to quit talking before my brain is done. If you found value out of this episode, I would be so thankful if you would rate and review on the podcast, subscribe on the YouTube channel. If there's anything else that you would like to, I'm just making sure if you heard the click, I'm just making sure I didn't hide another slide back there. If there's something you would like help with specifically, or if there's something you want another video done. So for example, if you want me to do like a screen record of like a step-by-step process of setting a book up in KDP instead of just the screenshots, please let me know. Leave that in the comments, or if you rate and review on the podcast, leave that in the review of like, hey, Michaela, I would really love to see this next. That's really helpful for me to know what kind of content would serve you best. And with all of that, that is a wrap on our first masterclass on the Miss Michaela Mae show. I'm your host, Miss Michaela Mae, here with my corgis, Tank and Willie, and we will talk to you and see you in the next masterclass. Actually, the next podcast episode. I don't know when the next masterclass is yet. Stay tuned.